Ciao YouTube. Today I want to talk about a serious topic. I'm not reviewing anything, I'm not playing any games, and I'm not going to be over editing this video at all. This video isn't for the masses, it's kind of like for you guys who know what I usually talk about. Basically, I've mentioned this many times and I have another video on a similar topic, but I think there's a major issue going on. It was already there 5 years ago when I started getting into this FPS improvement community, and it's definitely still there to this date. The issue is that we're all looking for answers, and the answers are usually provided based on the wrong reasons. Usually the people that have the answers have them, or at least they think they do, and especially others think they do, because of their authority. And when I say authority, it's kind of a hard to define concept, but I mean that these people, for some reason, let's say in the aim training world, these people have high benchmark scores, or they stream and have a large following, or maybe they're pro players, or maybe they're just very loud, which is also sometimes a problem because it works. But for these reasons, which are really not valid reasons to think someone has the answers, they're still believed to have answers. And the questions are many. We have questions about peripherals. What's the best mousepad? What's the best mouse? What's the best grip? The sensitivity, the monitor, the collection of these things together, the aiming style. All of these things probably have statistical answers. They probably do have one best thing for scenario X that will work on average for most people. But the moment you start saying these things, you're already kind of framing it as something that can be measured. And the thing is, I think it can, but I think no one is doing any measurement, or at least not in a way that is scientific. When I say scientific, I mean that when you're looking for answers like this, you need to set some control. You need to use the scientific method. Academia nowadays, I started a PhD, I quit it 1 year before the end. I just didn't like the world of academia. I didn't particularly like what I was working on and the environment, but I do like science, and that doing that PhD kind of gave me at least a glimpse of what the scientific method really is in a modern way, when we're talking about papers, peer-reviewed papers, randomized, control, double-blind, all of that. The way that we do science is to try something, have an idea, have a hypothesis, and then you set up an experiment and you try to minimize variables so that you don't find just correlations, but hopefully you have enough data that you might start assuming there's an actual, causation in whatever phenomenon you're trying to prove or disprove. And then you publish your work so that other people can review it and make sure that you didn't have some methodological issue or just misinterpret the data or something similar, or maybe you made the facts up. It's very important. The peer review part of this is very important. So when you just go to your favorite loud voice or content creator, it's not just loud people. There's not always, a malicious intent. I also try to give a lot of opinions that to a lot of people might sound as facts, even though that's just what they are. They're my opinions. So there's not always a malicious intent, but still the end result to me is the same. You will take an opinion and you will start thinking that it's an answer to a question, the best mousepad for X, and you will probably start repeating it somewhere else. And some of the people that hear opinion X become what I've mentioned in a different video, they become tribal about it. They become almost religious. It becomes a faith where the answer, or what they believe to be the answer, but really just the opinion that they're just repeating from some other loud voice they heard, becomes a faith for them, so that they have to defend it very often in very aggressive ways. I think this is holding us back. When I say us, I mean we, the people that care about FPS improvement, improving at FPS games, or TPS games, shooter games, which might sound like a trivial thing, but we humans need competition. And I mean, that's why this isn't even a niche, really. When I say us, I'm talking about so many people. I mean, there's whole serious businesses, multi-billion dollar market involvement, that it's not a niche. This is a serious thing, because if enough humans care enough about a specific thing, then other humans should probably pay attention. And I think the reason is simple. We want competition, and playing video games, competitive shooters, is a great way to scratch that itch for competition in a healthy, controlled way. So it's a serious thing, and when you're trying to compete, you always want to be your very best. You want to see what skill expression you have in you, how far you can get. And that's why we're here, right? That's something that I've made a mission of mine for a long time, so much so that I decided to work at AIM Labs, because I was hoping to find some answers. And I think, given the incredible opportunity I was given to also, at some point of the many jobs that I've done in AIM Labs, I was also doing R&D, and they gave me a massive chance to get a really good look at a lot of interesting data that helped me form some maybe little pieces of answers, or maybe just more questions, but more directed questions. And I think this directed is a key component of this whole ordeal. Because I think if we want to get to a point where eventually we do have answers, we need to do science. And to do science, we need direction. We need some way to decide what we're testing for, and we need to set up the experiment. We need to control as many variables as we can. We need to involve as many people as we can with as little bias as we can, which is a very hard thing to do. Especially if you try starting from a niche within a niche, like the aim training community will have some obvious biases that maybe aren't actually true of humans, but they're true of the selectively biased sample of aim training enthusiasts or people that are interested in aim training. But it's still a start. We don't have any of that. And we can do it. Like, the same people that are looking for the answers can, with a directed question, find the answer. And that's not following the latest tech or content creator or the latest top one in whatever benchmark, and they are saying something. I am credited with the invention of the BART pill, obviously, which is really nothing crazy. I don't think I said anything particularly smart. And the reason why it's named and people still mention it to this day is because I was number one. It wasn't because of any particular insight in the technique or because it was just groundbreaking, smart. No, it's pretty obvious. The video where I explain it isn't particularly well made or groundbreaking, and the tweet is kind of very basic. So why did it go viral? Why do people still mention it? Because I was number one. So that means that it became kind of like an answer because of the authority that I had, not because we tested it at scale, which is a problem. So where am I trying to get here? I think that if we work together as a community, as many people as we can, if we try to be proper and open in the way we run these experiments, I think we can find the answers ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us. We need to do it. This requires a shift in thinking. We need to really start believing that we are trying to figure out some underlying truth that exists in this collection of very noisy human-related data. And we need to decide that we won't take authority as an argument for why you should believe something, but we're trying to do science. Now, this is hopefully something that all of you who are watching are interested in. I definitely am. I've been trying to find these answers for so long at this point. A very, very high percentage of my life, because I started playing competitively and getting obsessed about mice and mouse pads and sensitivity when I was 13 or 12, and I'm 31 now. So it's been a long time. And I think this might be what I've really been trying to do for the past 5 years at least. So where do I want to go from here? Basically, I think because of my experience with computer science, doing R&D at AIM Labs, I can at least help start this process but it needs to be a community-driven process. We need to come together with a question. We need to define the experiment, and then we all need to be proper and try to become subjects of the experiment. I've run this type of experiment before with like friends. Recently, and I'll probably post a video about it because I've compiled everything, I got one of my friends, Italian friend, Grandmaster in Voltaic. I've mentioned him before, he has insane aim, but he's also of the super small mouse, very fast pad type of niche, like where we're all convinced that will give you the highest ceiling in aim. I bought him a GPX2, a Logitech GPX Superlight 2, and a QCK Plus, 20 euro version. We play CS basically every day, and for a week I was like, please do not change anything, do not change your sensitivity. Play with a QCK Plus instead of your Hayate Otsu, and play with a GPX Superlight 2 instead of your Final Mouse. He kind of rotated between Final Mouse, some G-Wolves, ATS probably mouse, kind of pretty commonly used smaller, faster mice. And then we compiled the data, and turns out my hypothesis was that you're going to be more consistent, at least in CS, if you play with something like this. And it seems like the data proves it, but this is n equals 1. This isn't a statistically significant sample. But imagine if we had decided together that this is what we're trying to figure out this month. Like 500 of us decide to do this, Obviously, we can't get QCK Plus and GPX for 500 people. That's an insane amount of money. But there's smaller experiments that we can start with, sensitivity related, for example, that no one else can answer, because some of these are technological issues. Because a lot of these game companies, if they cared, they could do part of it. But there's some technological issue where the user needs to be in the loop. For example, sensitivity is DPI related, but there's no API in the operating system to get DPI because it's not a standardized thing, which means that if you're a game developer, you can't ever know what DPI the user is playing at unless you ask them. And then you have issues where players might not know what DPI are. So then no one can really do any type of connecting motion to game data. But if we as a community come together and decide that we want to do it, we can. So all of that to say, I have basically decided, you know what, I'm going to gather people that want to do this with me. I'm going to set up experiments that are time-based. I'm going to collect as much data, self-reported data, which obviously will have noise and some people will mess the reporting up. It's natural, but there's ways to handle that in science. And I'll do this all publicly, and it needs to be free. So all the data collected will be public. The users will know that this is part of it. The scientific analysis will be peer-reviewed, public. I will do everything in public, probably post a video after every experiment, something like that. And hopefully we'll find some answers. This is a new concept. I've mentioned it in streaming before, maybe some of the videos, some of the comments I've responded to that ask some of the questions. I've basically answered that this is the way I think we could solve it. And to do so, I've opened up a Patreon. I kind of left this at the end of the video because I know that if you're here at this point, you probably have a higher chance statistically of caring for this. The Patreon is free. Basically, I wanted to figure out how do I collect personal information like emails or just people and do it legally. And I thought of putting it on my website, bardos.com. And then I realized I don't have a company. This isn't my job. I'm not making basically any money from any of my content creation. I still have a day job. So I'm going to do something that handles it for me. That's why I thought Patreon might be the way, because I saw Viscos is using a Patreon. We talked about it. So I created a new Patreon, bardos.com. Oh, that'd be interesting to put it on my website, but that's not where I want to go. Patreon.com/c/bardos, whatever. I'm sure I'll link it in the description. And I want to use that plus custom software that I want to write. That's what I wanted to get earlier, because I do have a Master of Science in Computer Science. I'm a programmer with a lot of experience, which is kind of making me feel heavier, but at least I'll be using it for something that I super care about, which is also something that AIM Labs allowed me to do. I won't be doing any boring coding. For example, I want to build a better mouse analyzer, ways to analyze your packets, DPI, hertz related, but I need people to do the data, the collection, to be subjects. And as long as it's free, we're all doing it together, and the data is all open, publicly available, because we all decide that it's okay for other people to use it. I'm sure we can look into licenses. I'm sure some people will help me more like actively in this. I think we can find the answers. I think we, the community, can, like, after all these years, actually be like, you loud person are saying X. Well, actually, we tested it, and for N percentage of people, it's not the best, or you're actually right, but there's this other caveat that we discovered as a community. I just think it's just super cool. Like, if we can do it and run experiments like routinely, and I think in terms of statistical significance, it doesn't even take that many people for it to start being, a trend. If there's actually like signal in the data, you will see it. Trends are pretty easy to see, even with not too many humans. Obviously, we're going to have the issue of the selective bias that I mentioned before. We're all aim training focused people. Maybe, hopefully, this can go a little wider than just aim training focused people, and we can do it. But I'm just super excited. So I created a Patreon so that hopefully you can join in for free, obviously. And I'll use that as like the center, especially for the legal part of like having data from people. I don't know. I just feel like it's easier to do it there than on my personal website. And if you join it, you just keep up with the posts. I'm sure I'm gonna make tweets about this, more videos, and let's find the answers. I'm just so annoyed of all these loud opinions that have absolutely no basis behind it. And you see them every day on Twitter. It's just not cool. But I think we can solve it. So if you're interested, I know this was probably a little too much rambling, but join the Patreon. I hope we get enough people that starts being interesting, and be ready, because if you game a lot, it's going to be annoying not to be able to change X thing if you're a Y type of player. But remember that you're doing it for science, and then you will find the answers that you're looking for, and I'm looking for, and we're all looking for. And I feel like that will be the best feeling ever. So hopefully this works. I'll see you guys.